Hi, Kevin Coupe here, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. Coming to you from the road this week. I'm somewhere in Pennsylvania, off giving a couple of speeches. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about something that happened to me that made me think a lot about the notion of customer service. Now, I've written a lot here over the years about Stu Leonard's, and in part that's because Stu Leonard's has long been a leader in the whole notion of creating a customer service culture. I think everybody in the retail business, certainly in the food business, knows about the boulders that are out in front of every one of Stu's stores saying, rule number one, the customer is always right. Rule number two, when in doubt, reread rule number one. Okay, that's their guarantee. I think I've also written a lot about Stu Leonard's over the years, quite frankly, because for 30 years or so, I've done almost all my food shopping there. So I'm very familiar with the store and with the culture and with the people. Anyway, I was thinking about Stu Leonard specifically because of something that happened someplace else this week. My daughter went to the prom, right? You've all seen pictures of my daughter. And she had her dress altered at a local tailor shop called Sandus, right, in Noroton Heights, Connecticut. And, she'd brought the thing in, gotten it altered, puts it on, a couple of hours before the prom, and suddenly discovers that, basically they've shortened it a little bit too much, and they haven't brought in the top the way she wanted it brought in. So it ends up she goes to the prom, and she's constantly going like this with a dress all the time, right? Now, if you've ever have a teenage daughter, you know some of this can be really traumatic, but she soldiered through it. She was a good sport, but, I wasn't happy. I'd spent $90 on these alterations. So anyway, once the prom was over, I bring the dress back to Sandus Tailoring Shop in Noroton Heights, Connecticut, and I explain the situation and say, listen, I spent $90, you didn't get it right. You kind of, created a problem the night of the prom. How are you going to help me out? Now, listen, I would have been happy if they'd apologized and they'd said, listen, we'll give you $20 back. I would have been thrilled with that. An apology, quite frankly, would have done it. They said, the woman who did the alterations looks at me and says, well, I'm sorry, I did what I was supposed to do. You should have brought it back. But obviously there wasn't enough time, and I tried to explain that to her. Didn't get it. Turns me over to the manager. And the manager basically looks at me and says, listen, we did our job. You didn't do your job. And I was a little bit surprised by this reaction. And I said, really? You're gonna say that your position on this is that the customer didn't do his job? You really want to do that at a time when so many customers who are disgruntled can go on the internet and complain about you and make public all their feelings about you if they're not happy? And he just didn't want to have anything to do with that. And he basically said, he says, I think you're being ridiculous about this. Really? You want to call me ridiculous? I said, listen, I know a little bit about retailing, and I'm pretty sure one of the things you're never supposed to do is call a customer ridiculous. And he looked at me, and that's when he said it. He basically looked at me and snarled. He goes, we're not Stu Leonard's. Whoa, that was amazing. Now, first of all, Stu Leonard should be really happy about that, right? Because obviously they have created such an image and such a customer service culture that even companies that don't get it use them as a benchmark. And I think that's pretty great. Stu Leonard should feel really good about that. But, this really was a cautionary lesson because, first of all, if you're in the customer service business, and we're all at some level in the customer service business, if your customers aren't happy, you got to do your best to make them happy and at least be a little bit compassionate about the situation. You can't afford to have to put people in a situation where, like this, I'm going to go out and tell everybody I can about Sandus Tailoring in Noroton Heights, Connecticut, and how they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And the other thing is, you've got to deliver on your promises, and that happens whether or not you have a boulder by the front door. Sandus down, Stu Leonard's up. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this Thursday morning. As always, I want to hear what's on your mind.